You're listening to the premiere episode of the Choreograph Critics Wrestling Podcast. Will it be our last one? Tune in.
Sure hope not.
All right, welcome to the show, everybody. I'm John, and on the other side of the screen is Joel.
Hello, hello. Welcome.
And we are doing our debut episode today. So, a little bit about us. We've been friends since probably, I want to say like third grade. It might be
Yeah.
even before that. And as kids, I don't think we ever talked about wrestling, did we?
No, you were like, that's a forbidden subject, Joel. I cannot discuss this wrestling matter. It's
I don't know about that, but yeah, I wasn't really allowed to watch it as a kid until later, but
and I wasn't supposed to watch it.
oh, yeah. Yeah. That's kind of where I fell too. Like I watched it at people's places. I recorded it at my grandparents. Stuff like that. But yeah, and then we kind of grew up, and I know Joel didn't follow wrestling too much as an adult until probably like 2 years ago.
There was a lull, yeah. I would say between 2009 to about 2020, I didn't pay much attention. But according to everybody, those years under Vince were not too good.
Yeah.
And to give context to the listeners and viewers, we would have, during our teen years and being old enough to watch professional wrestling, namely, obviously, WWE, it would have been the aggression era. Because we were quite young, probably elementary during the Attitude Era. But we evolved the nostalgia of the Attitude Era because, well, when it was such a cult sensation, it hit popular culture. The merchandising was everywhere. Wrestlers were on late night talk shows. It was really vibing as if it was the late 80s all over again.
Right. And you'd see like the Austin 316 just in public, or The Rock, Know Your Role, or
Yeah.
Layeth the Smacketh Down, or whatever those were. But yeah, so
Yeah.
I'd agree. Ruthless Aggression. That would be like when Cena's coming in, when Randy Orton,
Yep.
Batista, those guys. Great wrestling class. Those guys all coming in at the same time. But yeah, so I would say also around 2009, I had a lull until about 2016 when my buddy James had gotten for his birthday tickets to SmackDown, and he knew that I was into wrestling, and his wife didn't want to go. So we got together to do that, and we kind of started watching wrestling a little bit to like figure out what was going on. So we kind of knew the storylines and stuff, and this was like right about the time that Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton, like Randy Orton was a part of the Wyatt family at this time, and
incredible.
It's weird to think about, but he ended up like betraying Bray or whatever, and I don't know if you know about the Swerve and Hangman story going on right now, but like Hangman just like lit Swerve's childhood house on fire, like just
Yes.
yeah.
That's right.
So Randy Orton burned down the Wyatt compound in 2016.
Yeah, I've seen clips. We've had, those rivalries. They haven't had a Inferno match in a while, if you
Yeah.
recall. God, that's something. But didn't Bray Wyatt have something similar in some of his feuds?
I don't know about fire, but he always had like some sort of gimmick. Like he had like a House of Horrors match with Randy where it was just like all this random stuff in a like basically haunted house. it was really cheesy and funny, but anyway, so yeah, so I got back into wrestling a few years before you. So I do have some of the context of like the Vince terrible era there. Like I watched like 4 years of it. I don't even know why I did, to be honest. Like it just fell back into it. Um
But you raved about early NXT, which
oh
I
yeah.
missed.
Yeah, so that was like 2017 to 2020. That was a very good time.
Yeah.
Um Yeah, we'll probably talk about that someday. I mean, I could talk about that anytime I talk about wrestling. um, because that's what I wanted AEW to be, was basically like an offspring of what NXT was, and it felt that way a little bit at its inception, but then now it's, I don't know, it's kind of lost its luster for me. But um,
Right. Yeah. No, I got into it. I say 2020. The pandemic was weird because what turned me onto wrestling during that time period was the idea that, hey man, my buddy Grant calls me up and he's like, yeah, they're wrestling without a crowd. and, and I'm like, what do you mean they're wrestling without a crowd? And so I tuned in. It was just surreal because you had this, I have this, all of this nostalgia for the interaction with the audience and the pop, and you can't have professional wrestling without a live audience. And I was intrigued just to go see how they were executing, and it was awkward, it was weird. To me, it got more strange when they put the little television screens in with the fans' faces. So I didn't sink my teeth into that product. However, I kept my eye on it, and I had voices in my ear saying, hey, that was good, check that out. Here's a clip, check this out. Next thing I know, SummerSlam rolls around. The first SummerSlam under Paul Levesque's rule. I believe it was Lesnar versus Reigns, where Lesnar brings the tractor in like a good old farmhand and moves the entire ring with Reigns in it. Um, that was the first PLE that I really got into it again, and I could see the difference in quality and the new direction. And then I read about all the scandals with Vince. I read about the TKO merger. It was one thing after another, and you and I both kind of talked about how wrestling at that time was just exponential increase in exposure for social media, pop culture, and I feel like we're now riding the zeitgeist of a brand new trend where professional wrestling, like Dwayne The Rock Johnson said, is now cool again. Do I think he has something to do with it? Yeah, I do, but he's not. He's not the first mover. He's not the driving force. The talented crew that is signed to WWE's roster, the competition with AEW, the widespread developmental scene, and social media. Under Paul Levesque's creative control, all those things have built this beautiful pyramid of engagement. And I no longer feel like WWE is the only option for people who love professional wrestling, but it still is the best option. And I can say that with all my heart because what WWE is doing now is something you should be proud of. I'll leave it at that.
yeah, and obviously that's so much different from when we were kids. Like it was like the inception of in social media, and like
Yeah.
we were little, like past the age of like knowing whether or not something was real or fake, because obviously like there was the NWO and all that stuff, like when we were much younger. When I think most people kind of consider the outsiders going to WCW as one of the last, like, is this
Mm,
real? I can't tell. Like, are these guys really just like invading the show? Like, they have tickets, they're in the first row with their hot dogs, like people didn't know back then.
AFAB.
Yeah, kayfabe, yeah. And
Yeah.
like, they just didn't know. But like, after that, or I guess it started a little before that. Like, Dave Meltzer had like a monthly newsletter he'd like mail to these subscribers. And then it evolved into email eventually. But there weren't too many people that were just like talking behind like the scenes basically, or talking about like people's contracts or like their relationships with this person, that person. Um, and a lot of that kind of stuff is what's keeping me drawn in, kind of like you're saying, it's all kind of peaked,
Yeah.
and all culminating into this great thing. And
Yeah.
I just, yeah, it's just so much more entertaining to me. Like this is the closest I'll be to like keeping up with the Kardashians, or like some reality show everybody pays attention to. Like this is my equivalent to
Yeah.
that.
And John, the access. Wow, how blessed are we? We got Bad Blood around the corner, but I never, in my earlier years, had the chance to watch a lot of pay-per-views because they were pay-per-views. And when you're a kid with no income, you're like, Mom, Dad, can you please buy the $50 package to have me watch the Royal Rumble? And your mom and dad is like, no, that's like double our cable bill or something. Like, I'm not paying a month's worth of cable for a couple hours of wrestling. So yeah, for access and the global chatter, the no sphere with everybody going, oh, what's happening on Twitter? Oh, this person uploaded elements of their in-ring story on their social media, and so you get this bleed through, like you were saying, what's real, what isn't. It's beautifully fabricated now, and it's hard to tell a shoot from a work. And that's the way it should be when wrestling's at its best. But the accessibility, John, I never in my little boy dreams could have imagined having total access to PLEs year round for a subscription fee of like $10 a month.
Yeah, it's incredible, and you get all of Raw, all of SmackDown, everything that they own.
Yeah.
Pretty much, you can watch on there on
What's
Peacock.
not to love? I mean, when I tell people should I jump into the weekly shows? Sometimes I tell them, no, you should just wait for a PLE, watch that, and then follow up with the weekly shows. Sometimes getting people to start with the weekly shows, if they're not into wrestling, they're not going to be into the overarching narratives and the soft storytelling going on with promos and spots in the ring and all that stuff, right? So I tell them to watch a PLE because at least with those cards, everything's cut in stone. You know who the face is, you know who the heel is, everything's kind of recapped before the match starts. And then to have them follow up on Monday or even Friday or even NXT, whatever you have, right? Then they get the template. They go, oh, okay, I understood what was happening in Bad Blood. Now I'm going to see the fallout of that. So I could never say that before. Like, they were kind of like forbidden fruit. They were for the hardcore wrestling fans. Oh, you're going to watch the pay-per-view? I wish I could, but I don't have access to it. I'll get it bootlegged on VHS later.
Right.
Or DVD, digitally, so.
Yeah, I'll go rent it
How
at
awesome.
Blockbuster. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And speaking of pay-per-views, that's the main subject of our show today. We got Bad Blood coming up on Saturday here.
Yeah.
Special
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
time, 6 p.m. Eastern. So I don't know why. I figured that was because they were going to have more than 5 matches. Like they've been having like 5 matches every pay-per-view, it seems like. So I heard special start time. I'm like, oh, it's going to be a little bit longer. Okay, maybe we get 7. Nah, it's still 5. So I don't know why.
That could be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but yeah. Anyways, so those 5 matches, we don't know
Sure,
the
yeah.
we don't know the order yet, but I don't know. Do you want to start with something we're most interested in, or should we start least?
Let's start with the CM Punk Drew McIntyre. And the reason why I want to start there is it's one of besides the Bloodline and Cody Rhodes, this has been going on since the Royal Rumble of last year, if you take into account Drew injuring Punk. And then you fast forward to Mania, you have the cash in, the screw job with Punk. And then you and I were discussing, this is a really weird point for both of them in their career because I feel like you have 2 heels but everybody cheers for Punk. But I feel like a lot of his actions are quite heelish, right?
Yeah.
He comes back from injury, and it's a personal vendetta. Um, what are your thoughts on them finally meeting in the squared circle underneath the cage we call Hell in a Cell?
Well, I'm excited. I think that there's going to be like I wouldn't say anything that we haven't seen before. Like it'll probably, be pretty chalk when it comes to Hell in a Cell matches. We'll get the somebody breaking through the door,
Oh
breaking the
yeah.
chain. We'll get out of the cage, right? Like they'll get out of the cage somehow. Um, I kind of, I we'll see, but if we're assuming this is gonna be like the finale of their feud, I kind of see CM Punk's wife AJ Lee being in attendance, and
Ah,
I could see Punk or not Punk, McIntyre, kind of giving her a little bit back and forth, right?
that'd be great.
Um, So it'll get really personal again. Maybe he breaks another bracelet. I don't know. And then
Yeah. Not the friendship bracelet.
I I could see that as a vehicle for like putting Punk over the edge and doing like things that you wouldn't expect or didn't know he could get to that limit, but he has to defend his wife AJ, and then he ultimately comes out on top. That's kind of what I think it'll culminate to. But I'm curious what you think.
Well, that's it. No, that's interesting. They have been ramping up the brutality. Um, I'd say one of the most brutal moments, besides the bull rope match, would be that Monday Night Raw episode. It was Raw, right? When McIntyre, the garage door opens, and
Oh,
there's Punk's bloody carcass.
it was actually SmackDown because
That was a
SmackDown's in
SmackDown.
Chicago. So then they're like, "Oh,
That's
Punk's
right.
in Chicago," and then, yeah,
That's right, because he was going to make an appearance. They were going back and forth with the promos, and oh man, and that was also a night they WWE pivoted to that wonderful cinematic outtake where you have a wrestler in the back and you follow them through their entrance, and it's the single rolling, rolling film, no cut,
okay, yep,
and they did that with the garage door opening, McIntyre being, oh, there's Punk's bloody carcass. I was like, oh my god, McIntyre's here. Looks like no promo for Punk. Um, and so for me, so far, that's the highlight of brutality. Do I think it's going to be over the top in Hell in a Cell? Yeah, I expect it to be. They're in a Hell in a Cell, right? Um, but we also come from a time where we've seen a lot. Oh man, from Shawn Michaels doing some of the early Hell in a Cell matches to Mick Foley and Undertaker. I mean, Undertaker's been in a lot of Hell in a Cell matches, but yeah. As far as like the PG era going up until now, I feel like they've been tame. Hell in Cell matches have been tame. And if there's any time for WWE to really bring back some brutality, yeah, Finn Balor and Edge had that busted wide open spot, but that wasn't intentional, right? Like that wasn't
yeah.
part of the storytelling. But I feel like they're going to integrate brutality that we haven't seen as we evolve into the Netflix era and Rob starts becoming a totally different product. That's my guess. So that's interesting. You bring up his wife, Punk's wife, being in attendance. I feel like McIntyre is a man with nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah.
So it's going to be brutal. I think Punk will come out on top. I don't know what they're going to do with either. Like, what can you do after this feud? It lasts half a year, half since WrestleMania till now. Are you going to have them carry this forward into Royal Rumble? And will there be another match, or will they just have some type of action in the Rumble? Like, I guess to capstone our predictions, what do you think stems from this? No matter who wins, what do they do with the talent?
So I think that they'll eventually get Punk in a program with Gunther, and like To me, it makes sense to do it sooner than later, just with Punk's injury history as of late. Um, don't know when
Yep.
else this could happen, and if he's winner out of 2 out of 3 with Drew McIntyre, he has a good case to be the number one contender. Um, and then as far as Drew goes, I've heard the idea on other wrestling podcasts. I think it might have been JD from New York I was listening to. He had this idea of maybe Punk or not Punk, McIntyre getting traded over to SmackDown somehow. And
Okay.
I was waiting this week to see like if during the final build to this match if they were going to put like a loser leaves Raw stipulation or something on it, and
Uh,
they didn't. So I don't know if that theory's so much in play anymore. Um, but yeah, the idea with that was just that Cody is kind of running out of heel opponents if he's not going to fight like a turned KO or a turned Randy. Um, and
totally.
and they're
Totally.
and they're going to 3 hours. They need more people. Um, so that was an idea that I liked, but I don't see it happening since there isn't like a loser leaves Raw stipulation. But um, so yeah, I think Punk in the title picture ultimately, and then McIntyre they either try to trade him, like I was saying, or yeah, I don't really know what else you do with him to be honest.
If you don't mind me interjecting, I think they could also have the angle of this was such a brutal match. It's finished, guys. We need to separate you. And there's some weird managerial decision where they go, McIntyre, you're going to SmackDown. Otherwise, you're no longer welcome on Raw. You guys took it too far, and we need to split you two up,
Hmm.
type of deal. That would be interesting. That could be easy. Um, yeah, and it brings me back to Punk being injured at the Royal Rumble. What was their plan? Because I feel like the Seth Rollins, Damian Priest, McIntyre stuff had to have been a contingency plan or something they thought of last minute.
Yeah.
Um, because I felt like Punk was supposed to be in the World Heavyweight Championship match at some point. I don't know if it was supposed to be at Mania, but I think Rollins and Punk having a feud, although he just stomped Bronson Reed's skull
Hmm.
into a steel. I think that's just a bump in the Rollins road towards Punk. I think we're gonna get Rollins Punk. I don't know how Gunther plays into it. So yeah, that's. I think you have a really strong point about separating them and getting them on to different shows after this.
Yeah, that's just I don't see what else would make sense, I guess. And I like that idea. Um
Okay.
we should probably move on to another match here. Unless you had other thoughts there you want to wrap up.
No, I think that covers that match. Um. So let's see.
So we
The
also
next match.
yeah, so we have Nia Jax versus Bailey. We can maybe not breeze
Sure.
through it, but we can,
We could touch on
touch on it. Yeah.
it.
So Nia's facing Bailey for the third time, right? Because she lost Bailey lost to Nia for the title, and then they had one other match, and now they're doing it again. Um,
Okay.
I wanted Naomi to win. I'm a big
Okay.
Naomi fan lately. I just think most of the matches she has are just solid. Like I think either one of these women who are not named Nia were gonna lose anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't know why they're doing it with Bailey again, unless like it's a
Is it the
vehicle
absence of Charlotte Flair?
potentially. But yeah, like I still even with that, like still it could just be Naomi too. Like to me, it's just a little
You're all about the
interchangeable for
glow.
that. I'm all about the glow, man. And
Yeah. So is Jimmy Uso.
during their Queen of the Ring tournament in the first round, it was Nia versus Naomi, and I thought they had a really good match and maybe
Mm,
one of the best matches of the entire women's uh, tournament. So, but anyways, I gave it away 30 seconds ago or whatever. I think Nia's for sure gonna win.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, you're not going to have her go into Queen of the Ring, come away with the crown, and then put a title on her only to lose in this situation. Doesn't make sense. Giving it back to Bailey, there was a strong that was a strong feature with the damage control storytelling. But now Bailey, she can kind of relax. She can fill in. She can play top of the card. She's talented. But there are a lot of wrestlers who deserve a shot on the SmackDown women's side. And we're just waiting for Tiffy time, right? Like,
I think so. Tiffy time,
that's it.
or like you brought up Charlotte Flair, like maybe she comes back and she's like, I'm the self-anointed queen and you're the queen of the ring,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so
I forgot about that.
that's built in, right? And like for some reason whenever Charlotte Flair comes back from an injury or a boob job or whatever, um like she's just thrust into the title picture right away.
Always. Yeah.
So at least this time they're like, well, we thrust her in, but we do have this queen thing, like they got they got more than just like it's Charlotte Flair, she's back. Um so
I hope. Maybe we can ask Andrade to have some input. I don't know. To Nia Jax's credit, I think I told you last week, she's so much more polished than she ever has been. She
yeah.
went from squash matches to actually being able to move a little bit in the ring for a while. Uh, her her stamina's increased. Her promos are good. I could see why they put the title on her in the absence of Flair and other talent not being fully ready to take on that spot at the top of the women's division. And she can play off the Barbie who has the Money in the Bank contract, right? That little dynamic is interesting because it's kind of like the wolf in sheep's clothing being your friend. Like,
Yeah.
Tiffany is just itching to cash in, but she's just being a little cute Barbie doll behind Nia Jax's back. She's like, I'm going to stab you. Uh, and so I can't wait for that. I think Nia Jax will come away with the title. I don't see any movement in that title for a while. Maybe not until I would go as far as Royal Rumble.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, so we're in agreement on Nia there. The other women's title
Yeah.
match, they're doing Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan, and
Mm. Yeah.
it's more Judgment Day stuff. I don't think
Yeah.
their like little tiff going on Judgment Day wise is ending anytime soon. I'm hoping the next match we'll discuss will probably be Finn and Damien. I kind of hope like there's some sort of like we're done with this now after that for their aspect of this
Right.
Judgment Day angle. But as far as who wins this one between Rhea and Liv,
Don't forget Dom's going to be swinging in a cage above the ring.
thank you. Yes, I did forget that. So, okay.
Which I don't know if that changes your mind.
No, I don't think so because I'm undecided. I wanted to hear your thoughts and then maybe I'll have a decision.
So, to me, the Judgment Day back and forth is Raw's version of the Bloodline drama. Like, if you really think about it, it's kind of like, oh, this is the new Judgment Day. There's been a betrayal, and there's a new Judgment leader. Well, there's not a Judgment Day leader, but Finn Balor has been slowly injecting his friends. I don't know why the hell Carlito is in there and he's not spitting apples at people. Like, if there's any time you want Carlito spitting apples in the faces of those who are not cool, it's now. Why is he not? I'm not going to make this a tangent, but why is he like not spitting apples? Is it a new hygiene policy? Is it a COVID era policy? But anyway, Judgment Day is the bloodline for Raw. I hope they can wrap it up because it's not as interesting. It doesn't have longevity in my eyes. And this is as good as it gets, man. This them fighting over Dom is as good as it gets. And I say that tongue in cheek because Dom is such like a caricature of a heel, but it works so well because of how over the top everything is right now. And Damian Priest, you don't. I don't know if you agree with this, and we're going to talk about their match soon. But Damian Priest has always felt like a mid carder to me. So when they put the title on him, I was really shocked. And I feel he's back where he belongs, as one of the Terror Twins. The point is I think we're going to have Rhea Ripley win. I don't think they'll reunite with Dom. I could be wrong. Maybe this is if Rhea wins and Dom reunites with Rhea, Judgment Day is going to disintegrate. And that will also piggyback on a Balor loss to Priest. But if Rhea loses, then the Judgment Day continues. But if that happens, what do you do with Rhea and Priest? You like really what do you do? What is Rhea without a title or a Judgment Day feud?
Yeah.
She's totally deflated. She may move merch and she may be the pretty goth punk girl she is right now, but let's not forget how much of a change in her gimmick she had to undergo to get where she is now. And let's not forget about all the heel work that was completely bolstered by the Judgment Day being present. That is not going to be there now when she has no title, has no Judgment Day. So I think it could go either way. If Rhea wins, then hopefully it's the end of the Judgment Day completely.
I kind of so I don't think Rhea winning is going to break up the Judgment Day, in my opinion. Because I don't think there's any way her and Dom are ever a thing again. I think they just threw
I
that
guess
out.
that was my stipulation. Dom would have to reunite for that to be true. But if Rhea just wins, then I agree with you. There's
Yeah,
not going to be movement.
yeah, and I don't see them reuniting. I still think there's like some lingering Jey Uso Rhea something,
Oh yeah.
but
Okay.
we'll see on that.
There's some
But
spidey senses.
well, I mean, she yeets for him and whatever. Um, I know you don't go on social media much. I don't really either, but on Twitter, like she'll like comment on his stuff, kind of flirty like, and
Oh
so
really?
yeah, so there that might be going somewhere, but
McAfee yeets for him though too.
yeah, everyone yeets for him. Joe
Everybody
yeets.
yeets for him.
Joe finds a sign every week. That's his thing.
That's right.
Um,
That's true.
anyways, I'll pick Rhea. I think you're right as far as like what is she without the title. But I
Yeah.
do think the Judgment Day is still together, and either Rhea keeps coming back or Liv keeps going back for the title, or I guess I'm not really sure. But while we're talking about Judgment Day, we might as well transition to Finn and Priest.
All
Um,
right. Sounds good.
so yeah, as far as Priest being a mid card guy, that's accurate. Like I don't disagree with you on that. Um, what I think with him is like McIntyre made some joke one week about how somehow Damian Priest is older than Drew McIntyre, um, despite like the experience gap in the company. But that might have been a factor for them. They're like, this guy kind of is getting old, and we have,
Uh
only so much. Like, we have all these guys that we want to put the title on. We got Braun Breaker in the works. We got Gunther, at the time. Gunther's already got it now, but, I was going to say. So,
like how do you fit him in? And remember, he had that briefcase and just dangling. He had the briefcase for almost the whole year.
yeah. So they had to figure that out. Um, and get it off of them. And they weren't going to do a botched one or like tag or on the IC or US belt like they did with Theory. They had to actually
Right.
do this. Um, but like Finn Balor used to be much more of a like main event type of guy until probably like COVID. Um, and I don't. Where was I going with this? So if we put them at like even playing field right now as far as like their position on the card, I think there's just going to be an edge to Priest on the notion of he's the baby face and he was the one wronged according to babyface logic or whatever. And I see him coming
It's
out on
solid
top.
logic.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. No, babyface logic and your prediction, I can see it has. I think we're going to see a Rhea Priest outcome. Both of them getting the W's. Um, the Archer. He's
The Archer,
he's good
man.
at what he does, and I love watching him deliver South of Heaven. We don't get a lot of choke slams anymore, so that's you can call it choke slam whatever, but it's a well executed choke slam. So he's fun to watch. He's gotten better, especially in the promos. Like if you go back and check out his NXT days where he was this weird like Italian ladies man, uh, he's definitely come into his own. So I like where he's at, even if it's a med card position. He's doing a very good job. And to your point, with Balor being a former world title holder, a former top of the card contender. If anything, this match, Balor has an opportunity to elevate Priest and put him over further. And I think that's why he's having this match. Like, if you step away from the narrative and you talk about the industry, this is Balor, kind of helping Priest get over. Even more so. Because let's face it, Balor was the leader. If you think about experience and talent wise, he was the face of Judgment Day until Priest stepped into the forefront. And Rhea, I felt like Rhea was an organic development. They didn't know what they had on their hands. They thought, slap her with some black lipstick and have her come out to metal music. And that blew up. To me, it was organic, kind of like LA Knight. Just they didn't know what they had, and then it came to fruition. And now, what do? You got to give her a belt again. That's what you got to do. As for Priest, doesn't need a belt. He does well as a faction member. I'd like to see him do more solo work though after he takes the W at Bad Blood.
So you think he comes out on top then? Finn puts him over?
I do. I think
Yeah.
we're going to see Rhea and Priest win. And the only caveat for the Judgment Day is if Dom betrays Liv, goes back to Rhea, then we're going to see the dissolution of Judgment Day. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to see Rhea Priest step away with the W's.
I agree. And we'll be right back here. We're going to take a brief break. And we're back. We got one last match to discuss here. We got the Hollywood, what do you want to call it? The cinema, the this is theater, whatever kids want to call it.
This is theater.
This is
Yeah,
cinema.
what did Roman
This
Reigns
is...
say? You know what they're calling it, Cody? They're calling it cinema. And Paul Heyman's like, yes, my tribal chief. Yes. I've been working on these cinematic themes for years.
I can't wait for Paul Heyman to come back.
Yeah. Oh, I still have this little itch for him to go and take on Braun Breaker as his new protege. But we'll see. Anyway, yeah. So Bloodline story's still going, which we expected. You and I, we've talked about this. The whole world has talked about this. What do you do after the back-to-back Roman Rhodes, or I should say Reigns Rhodes title matches, and you throw The Rock in there for good measure, call him the final boss, have him bloody Cody on national television, or whatever. So now you got Solo Sikoa. Before we get into this, what are your thoughts about Solo Sikoa being the illegitimate tribal chief? Because I want to bring one point to you that a lot of people forget. Weeks and weeks ago, I think it was before WrestleMania, I'm pretty sure Roman Reigns had a little meeting back when like Jay and Jimmy, they were all feuding and everybody's like, Jay, come on, pull the trigger. Stop the abuse. Look what they did to Sammy. You and Sammy are best friends. And we could dedicate a whole episode on
Oh, yeah.
Sammy's height of his career with his Roman Reigns bloodline feud. I hope it's not the height of his career, but it's looking like that. But anyway, so back then, if you recall, Reigns had a segment where he named Solo Sikoa as the next tribal chief.
Yes, I do recall this.
So is he illegitimate or is he asserting his authority? Or should there be a battle before that happens and only Roman Reigns can officially knight a new tribal chief?
So something that happened more recently that I'll bring up too is there was that moment when Roman, I forget if it was when he first came back or if it was like the SmackDown after he came back where he came back again, or I don't know what you call that, but
He's always coming back.
yeah, he's always returning. He returned for the second time that week. Um, but he returned and he like briefly. All right, I thought he was telling me to pause here, but
No, I was throwing up the one for my tribal chief.
so sorry.
Just for, you know?
Yeah, so sorry about the brief interruption there. Um, so Roman Reigns, he like speared Solo, or he speared somebody, and then Solo was without the neck thing, the what they call it, the ulafala.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. You probably, but you know, we're from Minnesota.
Yeah, the ulafala.
Yeah. Umaga.
The Umaga Fala. So like Reigns had it briefly, and then Solo got it back. But I think it was after that, like the week after, there was some Bloodline segment that was filmed backstage where they're all at the table, and and like something came up where Solo basically said like if Roman gets back that Ulafalo, you must acknowledge him as the tribal chief, as I will.
Ah.
And so if that was nothing, then it was nothing. But if that was something, to me, that means, potentially there's a situation where Roman gets that back, Solo falls in line, and maybe like Fatu and the other guys don't fall in line with that. Like maybe Solo realigns with Roman or something like that if he doesn't get the others to fall in line to, he's the tribal chief now. He's got the thing.
Like a weird dominance thing in a wolf pack. He just tucks his tail and gets to the back of the line type deal.
Yeah, like Solo does that, but then Fatu's like, no, like,
right,
you're my tribal chief. And then if he's not his tribal chief, then Fatu turns on Solo or something like that. That's getting down the road here. But that was just something I thought of too, was like they said something about the neck piece in the past.
Fatu has a future. Is he the future? I'm not sure, but he has a bright future. Yeah, I don't know. I thought I'd bring that up because to me, having Solo step into this role right after Mania, we've discussed this before privately, a little premature. I wanted to see him build more of it as a character because throughout Roman Reigns' tenure as tribal chief, we saw Solo sit back and be kind of like an Umaga enforcer, just kind of what Fatu is now, and maybe that's just the role that they play. But to see him transition into that mafioso type leader and be just cutthroat and businesslike, and this is the deal. I'm the new tribal chief wearing suits. He finally puts shirts on. It's just weird to me, right? Because there wasn't a lot of development there. My wife, she watches it. Thank God. I'm a very blessed man. My wife tolerates wrestling. Not only tolerates, but she'll tune in and she'll say stuff. But she's like, but Joel, don't you remember during a lot of Roman Reigns' rough patches, Solo Sikoa gave him some side eyes. gave him some like, you're my tribal chief, but man, not for long type looks. And so maybe that was their subtle buildup to him coming out and being a full blown leader. But to me, and probably in the eyes of casual viewers, it was really jerky. It was like WrestleMania, boom, Solo's a new man. Steps into the shoes, fills the role. It felt forced. I just wanted to see a little bit more development because they've been getting so good at long form storytelling, John, that I expect it now. And so maybe we're spoiled, but that seemed to me like a classic, just a classic professional wrestling thing where you're like, one week they're this and the next week, oh, he's doing that. And that's fine. But if you want to continue delivering the cinema, as the kids call it, you have to have those long, drawn out developmental sequences. And so the Solo we're presented today is fantastic, but how he got there was a little jarring.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if that would have gone different had their Cody Rock Mania debacle thing maybe went different. Like, who knows, like how far down they had something like that planned, and then because they abruptly changed it, maybe that made that more abrupt. I don't know.
That could be. That could be. I didn't think about that because that was abrupt.
Yeah. So for this match specifically, we got Roman teaming up with Cody to face Solo and his enforcer Jacob Fatu. I don't know. I'm still unclear why Cody is teaming with Roman, to be honest.
Oh man, just for the shock value, right? How surreal to see him stand side to side, tolerate one another. Not only that, but the pop, John, to hear when Roman Reigns goes for a spear and go, ooh, ah, and have the whole stadium light up. He's been working over a decade to get that pop. And good for Roman. He deserves it. I mean, it took 2 years of heel work. Triple H coming in and saying, you know what, I think your reign has to come to a graceful end. But good. I'm so glad to hear him come back and get a pop. And to team up with the top babyface makes sense to me. But I'm with you. The word is surreal for me. When I see them stand side by side, I go, wow. Wow. I don't have words for it because of the two-year backlog I have in my head going, no, they can't team up. No, it's not possible. Is Solo really like, is he such a big threat that you need to have the, you know, the friend of an enemy is my, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I get it from that standpoint for why they're doing the match, as far as like, you know, selling bad blood and selling the feud and stuff like that. But from like Cody as a character, I don't understand why he's teaming with Roman. Like, what does this benefit him? Like, he fought Solo a handful of times now. They kind of teased in their promo video in the stadium that like, oh, I'm like Roman still got his eye on the title, right?
That's a bad move.
I think so too. But anyways, like I just don't know why Cody as a character would be like, I need to team up with Roman, because he doesn't need to. Like he could just be done with the bloodline. And like if you're looking at it rationally, he could just be done.
He needs to be. He can't have his title reign be defined by the climb against the bloodline and then the plateau with the bloodline. You can't do that, because you can pivot away from this and you have a slew of other plans in the fold, right? You got The Rock. You can easily, and both you and I suspect that The Rock is going to slide in there one day and say, hey, I'm behind some of this fuel for Solo. I'm behind. I endorse this. I endorse the new tribal chief. That would get everybody to hate the final boss. And you don't need Roman Reigns and Cody holding hands and talking strategy. You just need Roman Reigns to have a new battle, a new struggle. And Cody doesn't need to be a part of that. And Cody, for his career's sake, needs to get a different category for him to wrestle in. It could still be top of the card. He is the champion, for God's sakes. But have him fight somebody that is a legitimate talent, somebody who's maybe coming up that he can help put over. But to have him have that match with AJ Styles, and then have a match with Hayes right when he got drafted, that was weird. I just feel like they're doing Cody dirty, like he's some type of, all right, kid, you got your championship, but listen, we still have all these plans, and you're going to have to go along for the ride.
Yeah, and they just kind of make him seem boring too, you know? Like he's got nothing to chase right now. Like he did it, he finished his story.
Yeah.
But just because you have nothing to chase in the moment doesn't mean you got to be like, "Oh, I'm going to team with the other top babyface." I mean, we don't really get along, but we have to for the greater good. Like I just booking wise I don't get it, but like at the same time I get it exactly from what you're saying where you're like this is a spectacle. This is oh my gosh, like maybe like Roman might be the bigger babyface now. I don't know.
That's the weird part, and that's what's strange. Why do you have to do that? And on top of that, John, we forget that The Rock verbally stated, "I'll be back, Cody Rhodes." So wait a minute. So Reigns wants the title, Rock wants the title, Solo wants the title. That's bloodline to the max against Rhodes. And so I'm with you. What do you want to talk about? How many times can he say that when there's nothing else to talk about but the bloodline?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So as far as this match goes on Bad Blood, I don't think there's any way Roman and Cody lose, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is will The Rock come back? Is this going to be his interference? They're probably going to save it for the Rumble if they're smart.
Yeah, or they could finally do a Jimmy Uso thing, or I don't know.
He's sitting on the back burner. I don't know if he's legitimately injured or on vacation. I don't know.
Yeah, or like if ultimately Jay goes back into that feud at some point, like maybe they just want them to come out at the same time, so it's like they're on an even field as opposed to like if Jimmy came back first and then Jay comes back as like I was just on this huge singles run, blah blah blah. Like Jay's all of a sudden like this huge hero and Jimmy's like, you know. But if they come back together, they come back together, maybe it's, you know, masked a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because in my eyes, we would get Cody out of the bloodline picture. Reigns returns. He's pissed off. He wants his spot back, rightfully so. And we were going to see some type of back when Jey Uso battled Roman Reigns for the tribal chief position, right? They had a little feud to prove their worth. I thought we were going to get that out of this, but no. You got the spectacle. But down the road, yes, let's have Reigns bring back the Wise Man, bring back Jimmy, bring back Jay. Let's have a full-on feud for War Games. Let's have a Bloodline War Games. That would be awesome. You don't need Cody Rhodes for that. And on top of that, why did they throw Randy Orton besides the King of the Ring outcome where people, we don't know if that was intentional or not with Gunther's quick pin with Randy's shoulder up, right?
Yep.
But they had to pluck Randy Orton from SmackDown to fight Gunther because they didn't have much going on for Gunther, apparently, besides having that follow up off of the King of the Ring botch, if it was a botch. I love their match. That match was great, both matches. But my point is Randy could be battling Rhodes and putting on a classic with him instead of Gunther. Because, like you said, who is he going to face? SmackDown going to 3 hours? What are you going to do? You're going to have the Bloodline be an hour-long segment?
Yeah, and like it's already like probably a 30-minute segment if you include like all the different like mini segments throughout the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was gonna go with that. Anyways, so I think we're in agreement on that. Cody and Roman win the match.
You know, I want to say we are, but there's part of me that I just think they're going to lose, but not clean. There's going to be something else. I could I want to wager to bet that Solo's going to add another member to the
Mm,
bloodline,
yeah.
and they're going to come out, and the bloodline's going to get stronger and stronger, and maybe the pivot for Rhodes will be like, "Hey, man, I've helped you, Roman. I hear you, buddy, but you're not getting another title shot. I'm done with your family. You're going to have to get help." And Reigns will be like isolated, lonely. Jimmy will come crawling back. Paul Heyman might return, and Paul Heyman will be like, "Yes, my tribal chief," and call up Jay and be like, "Hey, Jay, I know you just lost your Intercontinental Championship to Braun Breaker, but I mean, I expect Braun to get another shot at that title, but I don't see Jay coming back with a championship.
Right.
And you recently said that you think Jay's reign is going to go for quite some time.
Well, so part of that to me was just the whole thing that happened with Braun Breaker this week, where he had that interaction with Gunther, kind of giving him like the, like I see your title. Um, and
Yeah.
he
Yep.
gave Jay the handshake, and he's like, "I'm not gonna spear you, man. I promise."
I respect you,
Um,
bro.
so if that was a face turn, I don't know if it was, but if it was, like, they're not gonna just have him feud with the other gigantic face on Raw, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
So
weird because ever since he speared Ricochet, and Ricochet got speared so hard he ended up in AEW,
yeah, put him
which
through a
is
portal. Yeah,
he went through a portal, shows up. There's still fans going.
yeah, you hear it through the portal. Um, but yeah,
But
so that's why I was thinking Jay maybe will have a longer than expected run if Braun Breaker just turned face. Like they're not gonna run that back, I don't think. And then we're gonna see like
mm,
this matches where like he's facing Woods on Monday, right?
that's right.
Um,
Yep.
and we're gonna
Who's
get
turning
matches like
heel?
that. Yeah, it seems like he's turning heel. Um, but yeah, so then that leaves where were we? Okay,
Well, I
so
just think with. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so that was my only thing with Jay holding on to it for a while. But if he doesn't, then he's probably back in this bloodline thing quicker than I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where it should go. At WrestleMania, I don't want to see any of the Bloodline versus Rhodes. I want Rhodes to have like a new opponent.
It might be
And
The
I
Rock
want.
though. It might be The Rock in Mania.
I don't know how they're going to do that without dragging The Rock deeper into the Bloodline story. I think I'd rather see Reigns versus Rock after all the buildup of Reigns trying to. He will regain his status, I believe. Probably before WrestleMania. I don't know. It's such a. God, if they really want to play this, I don't know. Can they fit in a Rock feud, a Bloodline resolution, and separate Rhodes before Mania? That's not. How many
So
months are we out?
yeah, we're still quite a ways out. But it's something I was gonna bring up maybe at a different time, but now it seems appropriate. I was thinking there might be something to like when Raw moves to Netflix. I could see them being like much more inclined to have surprises than they would with like network TV. Just for the fact of like, I don't think they're going to be monitoring like the live viewership as much because they're going to get so much on the on demand side. So,
That's right.
so if you go into these things booking a show, not saying, hey, The Rock's going to make an appearance on the debut of Raw or something like that, right? Like, let's just say that's the plan, but they probably will never say it to the public because they don't need you to get your eyes on it live. They don't need to promote you to come on and see The Rock for this reason or whatever. But you hear The Rock was on Raw, so many people are gonna go back and watch that.
That's right.
So there could be something to like, I don't know, maybe Raw is a draft because they got to figure out how to get 3 hours of talent to SmackDown. Maybe Raw goes back to 3 hours after being 2 hours for a month and a half or whatever. Um, they could do something like they draft like Cody Rhodes to Raw or something, and then Gunther to SmackDown, and like The Rock has availability, and they're like, you know what? I'm sick of waiting on this. Let's just fucking do it. And, maybe they just have a match on Netflix, just either the debut or some random time where they
Oh
don't
man, that
really,
debut.
it could happen then.
Yeah, just I think the debut. Yeah. Now that you bring it up, that's definitely something's going to open up with the Raw debut on Netflix. Something big that will culminate at WrestleMania. That's my guess. Because you need something grandiose to pop that off, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not talking about a new network deal. You're talking about a new platform deal, a new way to engage wrestling.
Yeah. And yeah, I just think that opens the door to surprises since, like I said, they don't have to try to get your eyes on it while it's live, but they'll get your eyes on it knowing something awesome happened, even if it's after the fact. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Do you think
so
we're going to get product differentiation between SmackDown and Raw with Netflix having such an uncensored air about it?
yeah, I hope so. And I sent you this reel a couple days ago with Adam Pearce in it. I don't know if you watched it or not, but
Yes.
that kind of could lead into what you're saying too, where he's just like, no, I drafted this roster to be fucking chaos, right? So, like, yeah, they could lean into that more. And maybe if they have another draft, like, maybe they lean into it even more. Like, they draft Jacob Fatu to Raw with whatever they have, just like somebody like that, where it's just some chaos emitting talent.
Right.
So, yeah, I could definitely see that.
Well, the werewolf, he's chaotic. Oh man, he's so lightning quick though. That guy's a freak. When they call people freaks, he's one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Athletic freak. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to Bad Blood. So we'll be back after Bad Blood to discuss kind of the fallout.
Yep. Probably
Cool.
same time next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Sounds about right. Any
yeah.
closing topics you wanted to discuss?
Trying to think. I kind of think I got to everything I wanted to talk about. Well, your guy Dragunov has the ACL injury. Did you?
Yeah. I know. I know. It's a shame. I mean, I love to. I have told John my top three lately. Will Ospreay, Gunther. This is in no order of like, oh, they're number one, number two, number three. These are just like my top wrestlers that I would tell anybody who likes wrestling to check out. Will Ospreay, Gunther, Dragunov. Those three. They have all the qualities I look for in a wrestler. They have stage presence. They can conduct promos. But the number one quality, and I believe you cannot teach this, you can either cultivate it, but they have to have natural talent. The way you sell and express things through your body language to elevate the in-ring work and story. Dragunov possesses it. Will Ospreay possesses it. Gunther, they're so polished in the way that they make you believe what they're doing is not just choreography. It's an actual Greek theater performance where these characters are real and they're on stage and they're tangible and they're hurting each other.
Yeah.
And they have that. Dragunov, people might go, "Oh man, he's so fresh. He's so kind of wet." He's not. I think he's well formed. And if you really pay attention to his expressions in ring, he's fantastic. He sells not only what happens to him, but he sells things before it happens, and he sells to the audience his passion for execution in the ring. And I love that because it makes me get lost in his work. The antithesis to someone like those three, I hate to say it, Ricochet. Ricochet lacks that natural charisma in ring. He is a gifted athlete. He can execute move after move. His gymnastics routine is fantastic. It's impeccable. He lands it, he spots it. He probably gets tens if he goes to the Olympics. But that's not what pro wrestling is all about. That's a facet, right? That's a big facet. But when I look at Ricochet and his eyes and his facial expressions when he climbs to the top rope and he does this very cliche generic sell where he goes like, yeah, okay, I get it. Yep, you're going to do a flip off of this turnbuckle, dude. But the rest of the time, when no one's asking for him to engage the crowd, he's not doing it naturally. And so he's the antithesis. If you talk about character work, Ricochet never became a top card player because of his lack of charisma and his inability to express things as they are happening in ring.
Yeah, and he's definitely like getting exposed with that right now too in his new AEW run. Like they already are blowing their load with this Offspray feud, and like don't have like a they haven't built it well. I'll just put it that way. And there's other
Yeah.
guys that can do a 9.5 gymnastics routine. Not maybe not a 10,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
9.5. So they just got a lot of those already. Like, what is going to make him stand out? I completely agree with where you're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't have to be nimble and agile to be a good professional wrestler because that's just a part of it. I mean, goddamn, Paul Heyman doesn't wrestle and he's a good professional wrestler.
Yeah. Right.
So, eh, you know, we all have our priorities and what we look for in talent, and I'm sure the industry is more privy to what they need before they sign somebody to a contract. But if I was booking, and Triple H is doing a great job booking, Tony Khan and his creative team, we've discussed it. We'll probably save it for another
Yeah.
podcast about the differences in their approach to wrestling. But yeah, I don't know what they look for when they're scouting, but somebody like Dragunov, if I saw him at a local venue, I'd be like, sign that man up. God damn. Give me the popcorn. I'm convinced what he's doing is real and he believes it. That's just, you can't teach that. You can cultivate it. You can't just teach it.
So we will be missing him for probably 9 months. I think that's usually an ACL.
That's so unfortunate, man.
And let's see, we talked about, well, we brushed over Braun and Bronson Reed and Seth.
Yeah. Yep.
We got Gunther versus Sammy on Raw for the title. We got Jay versus Woods for the IC title. All crunched into 2 hours. So that'll be interesting.
Geez. That's balls to the wall.
Yeah, that's again why I thought there's maybe going to be 7 matches this time. Like, these are 2 matches that for sure could be on a PLE. But yeah, they're just going to throw it on their 2-hour Raw, so that'll be cool.
Yeah, they've been doing that, kind of giving us some treats weekly.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I'm looking forward to the card, man. I think we're probably not going to watch it exactly live. I don't know what your plan is, but we'll have it watched before we review it, obviously.
Yeah. We'll definitely have everything under our belt before we talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, hopefully everyone enjoyed this first episode, and John and I are discussing ways to kind of distribute this podcast beyond whatever platform we first air it on. So look for us later on YouTube for sure, and maybe other social media platforms. So thanks for listening, watching, wherever you are. Enjoy Bad Blood, and turn somebody on to professional wrestling.
Yeah, maybe tell them how people can just have a casual conversation and, just make an evening of it. And yeah, something to bond over for sure. Professional wrestling.
Definitely.
All right. Well, everyone have a good night. Thanks for listening.